Hello everybody, this is Hammer Striker here. Today on Team Hammer, I've got the latest from FN, the Reflex, and fighting for Team Striker is the latest from Canik, the METE MC9. Please don't forget to check out our website. Go to our affiliates page. You'll find discount codes for things like Mantis Axe and Core belts. Link to that cool little bore light that we use for lighting up the barrels. Use those links. It will often save you money, never will cost you any additional money, and helps the channel. And please consider supporting the channel on Player, formerly Utreon, where we can do some types of videos that are no longer allowed on YouTube. Both of these are targeting that Micro 9 category. They're kind of on the edge of it. They're a little over 6 inches long, but they do still kind of fit into the category. So you've got the high capacity Micro 9. So I've got the Reflex in my hand at the moment, so I'll start talking about this one. And note, this is a Hogue grip sleeve that we put on it to make it a little bit bigger and easier to get a hold of because it's 1 inch thick. It's a very thin gun. The Canik is not much thicker. It's 1.12. Kind of looks thicker, but it really isn't significantly thicker. It's not necessarily going to make the difference whether you can carry it or not. But these days, the thinner has become one of the big mantras, thin and small, with high capacity, of course. You can see the sights on the Reflex are actually nicer than the Canik. The front sight is a tritium sight with a ring around it, make it real easy to see, and white dot at the back. The Canik has just a white dot at the front and a blackout rear. I'm not a fan of blackout rear sights, so that kind of takes points away in my book from the Canik, but everybody's different. There is a decent gap between the front and rear sights as you're trying to sight, so I was able to shoot it well, but I would have preferred a couple dots to index on. So I do like the sights on the FN better. Now the FN that's in my hand here is not optics ready, but there is a version called the MRD that is optics ready. And all of the Caniks are optics ready. So the FN has 2 versions, the Canik just has the optics ready version. Pricing on these is actually kind of noticeably different. So the Canik is $440 MSRP. The FN goes from $599 to $659 depending on whether you get the $599, the version I've got in my hand here, or $659 if you go for the MRD, which is the optics ready version. So it's noticeably more expensive than the Canik. It does have a few features that are kind of nice, but I'm not at this point totally convinced that it's worth the extra couple $100. $440 MSRP is actually kind of low for a lot of the guns that are coming into this territory, so Canik's got a bit of an advantage there. From a size perspective, they're both close on length. The Canik is 6.1, the FN is 6.2. The FN's got a slightly longer barrel at 3.3 instead of 3.1 for the Canik. Not a big difference. That's not going to make the difference whether, when you set them side by side, that's not going to make the difference whether you can find a place to conceal it or not. The height is different, but there's a trade-off that comes with it. So with the flush mag in it, the right mag and the right gun, it would work. So with the flush mag in the Canik, it comes at 4.52 inches from top to bottom. With the flush mag in the Reflex, it's significantly shorter at 4.27 inches top to bottom. And you can really see that when I set them side by side. You can really see the difference in the height if I can get them to sit level. But that height accounts for a 1-round difference. So the Canik has a 12-round flush mag and the FN has an 11-round flush mag. The rounds take space. There's no way around that. So FN went with a smaller grip, a shorter grip, at the sacrifice of a single round. If capacity is more of a concern, it's going to tilt you back towards the Canik. Both of them have extended mags that hold 15 rounds. So once you put the extended mags in them, they're equal from a capacity standpoint. Neither of them have additional higher capacity mags currently available, but that could change at a moment's notice. Ergonomics are similar. Both have front and rear slide serrations. Both have a Picatinny rail. The FN only has a 1-slot rail. You've got 3 slots on the Canik, but I never let that bother me. Glock's had 1-slot rails forever. The aftermarket has dealt with it. Most everything that you can buy today will adapt to a 1-slot rail. So there's very few things you're going to find that you would not be able to mount on the FN just because of that single slot that you would then actually be able to mount on the Canik. The aftermarket had to deal with Glock, and once they did that, they dealt with it really for everybody else. Controls are similar, even though on the Canik has a nice extended slide stop slide release, really easy to get a hold of, and it is ambidextrous, and the one on this side does actually work. Magazine catch is reversible. The Reflex, it does not have an ambi-slide stop slide release. It does have a reversible mag catch. So if you're a lefty, the Canik's got a couple features that kind of give you an advantage there. Neither of these have thumb safeties, but both have internal drop safeties and both have an inertial safety. This one, it's a toggle on the trigger, kind of like a lot of them that you've seen. And the FN is a hinged trigger. And it works well. This is similar to what Smith & Wesson does. The inertial toggle is similar to Glock. Both of these worked well, and neither one of them actually presented any kind of an issue at the range. The only thing you will find with the FN is it does create a noticeable amount of take-up. So it kind of takes up to get to the pivot, and then it takes up to get to the brake, whereas the Canik has significantly less take-up. Not a big deal. You get used to it, and it works either way. I'm going to pop the mags out of these, and before I go on to actually show you the triggers, I'm just going to show you what they look like with their extended mags in. Now, because of the hook grip sleeve, you can't see the grip that's underneath this, but I will tell you that the mag blends well with it. It blends smoothly, the gap is tight so it's not a pincher, and everything just kind of flows in nicely. Same with the Canik. It kind of blends in nicely. A little bit bigger gap, but it did never pinch me. But what you get with either the Canik or you get with the Reflex is a full 3-finger grip. Now, one thing I did run into with the Reflex that the Canik doesn't suffer from, and I'll show you the difference and why, is the magazine base plate. So on the Reflex, with or without this grip sleeve, the magazine base plate is a bit wider than the back of the grip frame as it starts to curve in. And this edge right here that you see is kind of worn. That's deliberate. I filed it down because it was a very square edge, and it would bite right into the palm of my hand because it stuck out further than the grip. So when I grabbed it, it would bite in right there. The extended mag didn't do that to me, but the flush mag did. On the Canik, there's more grip behind the mag, and the mag is the same size as the width of the grip. So I didn't experience it at all with the Canik when I gripped it. So that'd be one thing if you're looking at the two of these, put the flush mag in them and grab a hold of it and squeeze it a little bit like you're going to shoot it in your hand, see if that mag bothers you. It's easily fixed. I just kind of rounded the corner of the mag a little bit, but it kind of surprised me that I had to deal with that. All they needed to do is either have a little more bevel on this or just a hair more width on the grip before it started to taper, and that would have gone away. One of the things when we put the hook grip on it, we kind of hoped it would give it enough width to alleviate that. It didn't. I still had to round the corner. So even with this hook grip on it, it stuck out just enough to bite into the palm of your hand. It's kind of an ergonomic issue, and it kind of surprised me a little bit. But functionally, both of these guns worked reliably. They worked well, and they worked from the beginning to the end. They really didn't show any bad behaviors. So I'm going to demonstrate the triggers, and I'll start with the Canik, which of course is empty. So you get a little bit of take-up, and then you get to a wall, and it's a very sharp, but it's a light, around 5-pound wall. Real crisp break. Real short reset with a little bit of bounce, a little take-up to get back on the wall, and then a really crisp wall. And I did mention earlier in the video, this is a striker-fired gun, so it's very consistent with what you're used to from a striker gun. Now let's look at the trigger on the Canik. Now, by the way, that's quite a nice trigger. I like that trigger. So you have, I've got the FN now in my hand. So I got a decent amount of take-up, kind of a bit of creep on a wall, but it's right around 5 pounds. It's still a nice trigger. This is going to come down to, do you like a sharp, crisp wall or do you like a softer wall? I'm not going to say either trigger is bad by any stretch of the imagination. However, I will say that the reset is longer than I would expect. It's almost all the way out, and then you need a little bit of take-up to get back on the wall, and then the break. So the Canik has a bit of a crisper, sharper, shorter travel trigger than the FN, but both triggers are good, and both triggers worked well at the range. Sometimes when you have these little nuances and you're sitting here at the table, they kind of disappear at the range, and both of these triggers function quite well when I was at the range. Didn't have any problem with either one of them. If you like our videos, please don't forget to give us a thumbs up. Kind of helps with YouTube to make sure our videos get seen. One thing I will talk about is slide. Racking the slide. on the Canik is not particularly heavy, but it's about the same as any of the Glocks or any other that you're used to. It's not a super heavy slide, but if you have compromised hand strength, you have a little more trouble with it. Reflex has got a very light, very easy slide. It's not quite into the category of the easy rack like the Smith & Wesson EZ. It's not quite there, but it's actually quite light. So if you're wanting a slide that's lighter to rack, yet still a reliable gun in the smaller footprint, which this is significantly smaller than most of the EZ rack ones that are out there, this one actually might fit the bill. It's not the lightest out there, but it's actually quite light comparative to the rest of the guns that are out in this field. So that might be one thing that would tip you in the direction of this. Price is going to be the other one. I mentioned, $440 versus $599 to $659. Takedown may be a little bit easier on the FN because you can lock it back and pull down this lever, and while it's locked back, you've got all sorts of different ways to push this lever down. Whereas the Canik uses more of the Glock style tabs. You take the pressure off it and you pull down on the tabs. It's not particularly difficult to do, but again, with compromised hands, you may have a little more trouble holding this down to take it apart. Both of them are easy to maintain. None of them require tools to maintain. They're not by any stretch one more difficult than the other. It's just this is probably easier if you do have hand strength issues because you're not fighting two springs at once. You're only fighting the spring up on this takedown lever. One advantage that the FN also has is weight. This weighs 18.4 ounces with a flush mag. The Canik weighs 21.27 ounces with a flush mag. So the Canik is noticeably heavier than the Reflex. Neither one of them are particularly heavy. But the Reflex actually comes in as quite a light gun. So it comes down to shooting them at the range. Both were easy to shoot well. I found the Reflex with its better sights easier to shoot well than the Canik, but both are easy to shoot well, especially if you get used to them. It just, I had to work for it a little bit more with the sights. And of course the sights are dovetailed on both of them, and if you get the optics ready version of the FN, then you can put an optic on it, and of course all versions of the Canik are optics ready, and if you put an optic on it, then the iron sights pretty much become irrelevant unless the optic fails. Coming down to which one would I choose? Well, there's going to be a few major determining factors. Price is going to be the big one. If you're budget constrained, the Canik is going to shine at $440 for what you see here with the optics ready version. If you're not budget constrained, the FN comes back into play, but it starts at $600, goes up to $660 for the optics ready version, and those are MSRPs as of the making of this video. FN does have a very long established track record of quality. So if you're looking for something that's known quality, the FN has that. The Canik, they're turning out to be good quality guns. There's a large following that likes them. I really haven't heard of any trouble with them. But if you were to ask somebody on the street, which one of these is going to be more reliable, they know about the FN. The Canik may be a little more obscure. Both of these proved to be pretty reliable when we were playing with them. I probably would come down to picking the Canik. Just ergonomically, it fits me a little bit better. I can change out those sights or just slap an optic on it, which I would probably put an optic on either one, so the sights probably are going to become irrelevant. And the difference in price feeds a lot of ammo into it. And because this actually did work well, I'm not worried necessarily about reliability on it. If you're wanting that military reliability, of course you'll go to the FN, but you're going to pay a little bit more for it. If you like our videos, please give us a thumbs up, share, subscribe. Check us out on Facebook, Patreon, Utreon, Rumble, Instagram, pretty much everywhere. And thank you.